Bienvenidos. Welcome, everybody. If you're able to keep your cameras on, it would be great to see your faces. Well, welcome, everybody. Again, bienvenidos to everyone who's arriving. Latinx healing is the topic of today's table talk, part of an ongoing series at Reimagine created by and for underrepresented communities. My name is Andrew Engel. I lead virtual programming at Reimagine. My pronouns are he, him. For folks who may have difficulty seeing me, I am a white cisgender male with glasses, salt and pepper hair. I'm wearing my guayabera today. It's creamy colored, satiny. I've got an orange wall in the back. I wanted to tell you first a bit about Reimagine for those who may not be familiar with our organization. We are a nonprofit catalyzing a unique and powerful community, people of different backgrounds, different ages, faiths, races, all coming together in the hopes of healing ourselves and the world. And we really need some healing right now. We specifically support each other in facing adversity, loss, and mortality, and in transforming life's biggest challenges into meaningful action and growth. Everyone here is welcome, but I'd like to underscore that this is a dedicated container to center the feelings and voices of people of Latin American descent. For those of you who don't identify as Hispanic or Latinx, we welcome you and encourage you to bear witness, listen, and learn in allyship. The majority of us here are zooming in from the United States, also known as Turtle Island by Native Americans and their allies. I'm in Lenapehoking, where a large city called New York is located on unceded land. Wherever you are, I ask you to join me in acknowledging Indigenous communities in North America, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. I'm stating this because it's a step towards continuing to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and white supremacy. We're all interested in knowing where you are, so please put that in the chat. I'll be pasting a link to a very helpful map called native-land.ca. I want to offer a bit of housekeeping here before we begin. For those who wish, you can click on the CC icon to get a live transcript of what's being said. Have I done that? Let me double check. I'm not sure if I've done that yet. Let me do that. Let's see. Yes. And you can save the chat by clicking on the 3 dots in the chat box. Feel free to send me a private note in the chat if you have any technical issues. I might be able to help you. I also wanted to give you a heads up on our next table talk. I hope you'll consider registering for it. It's a BIPOC gathering to reflect on the ways in which we navigate the first year of grief. And it will take place in the first part of the new year in 2024, January 24th. It's led by past Reimagine collaborators, Chinasa Eloe and Julie Shaw. Okay. And now I'd like to say a few words about the dynamic duo that put this event together. Manuel Zamarripa and Tlazoltiani Zamarripa are the co-directors and co-founders of the Institute of Chicanx Psychology based in Austin, Texas. They conduct community workshops, pláticas, as well as professional development training for educators and mental health professionals on issues related to Chicano, Chicana, Chicanx, wellness, cultural identity, and mental health from a Chicanx framework. Manuel is a psychologist, clinician, college dean, and danzante, He is also currently the president of the National Latinx Psychological Association. Tlazoltiani Jessica Zamarripa is a cultural educator, mental health advocate, and keeper of ancestral wisdom. She is a longtime Austin, Texas, mommy activist and community organizer working towards social justice within the Chicanx and Latinx communities. I'll let them say more about themselves and about the Institute, which is the co-host of today's event. Tlazoltiani and Manuel.
Mateo, thank you, Andy. Thank you to all of your faces, your rostros, y Ishli, Yolitzi, in your faces and your hearts. Me presento como Jessica Tlazoltiani Zamarripa. I present myself as Jessica Tlazoltiani Zamarripa, hija de Jessie Aguirre Zamora y de Maria Teresa Maldonado Montelongo. Those are my parents. And I am the mother of Graciela Elena, Jessie Lino Yaumiki, and Joaquin Tlawitz Masat. I'm related to the Yanaguana River in San Antonio, Texas, and the Four Sacred Springs between San Antonio and Austin. I come in a good way, and I'm happy to be sharing this time with all of you to harmonize our corazones, spend this time learning about our own healing ways. Mateo,
good to see everybody here. Present myself as Manuel X Zamarripa, and hope to come to you in a good way. I come to you as the son of Martin Zamarripa and Rachel Luna, and father of Graciela Elena, of Jessie Yaumiki, and of Joaquin Tlawitz Masat. And we just, again, hope to come in alignment with some of what we have been working with over the last 12 years, this work that we're doing. Mateo, thank you. We'll say more.
Mateo. We're going to share a few slides, and we're going to put the slides up and then come off and talk with each other, and then put the slides up and come off and talk with each other so that we can have a full conversation for this hour.
And I know there's a lot of us here, so I guess if we invite you to put in the chat as a way of opening, maybe we can put the slide up and we'll show a little bit here.
So if we were in person, we would go outside and we would open the directions and we would open in a circle. So these are some pictures of how we open when we get to be in person. There's some pictures of us working with the youth and with just all of our communities. And the reason we honor the sacred shape of the circle is because ancestrally, it's always been very important to our peoples. No one is in front, no one is behind. Everybody is at the same point to each other when you're in a circle. So we invite you to honor your lived experiences, your palabra, your word, your voices, using that medicine of the wind, right? Our voice, our breath, and the fire, which is what invites us to speak what we need to say. So we invite you to speak, if something resonates with you, if you have a question, if something comes up, just feel free to speak into this virtual circle and we can figure it out. If two people talk at the same time or whatever happens, we can work it out. So we invite you to speak because I don't think we would see a hand raised. So we can invite you to speak.
And if there's any intention you're bringing today, a hope or an intention out of our plática today, we invite you to just put that in the chat so that you can speak it into the circle.
Definitely.
Our virtual circle.
Yes. Okay. Next slide. How do you do that? There. Okay, so our land acknowledgement, we're coming to you here, wanting to recognize the land, con permiso de los guardianes de este sagrado lugar, with permission of the guardians of this sacred land that we are on, con permiso de nuestros ancestros, with permission of our ancestors. We would like to recognize the Alabama Coshata, Caro, Carizo, Come Crudo, Cahuitecan, Comanche, Kickapoo, Lipanapache, Tonkawa, Isleta del Sur Pueblo, and all Anahuaca peoples, and all the American Indians and indigenous peoples and communities who have been or have become part of these lands and territories in Texaslan, where we are, and whose lived experiences and histories need to be acknowledged and protected. Omateo.
Omateo. Gracias. Okay.
You do the next slide.
All right. So here we go. So already we want to start the way our people, one of the reconnection, or I know a lot of us already, understand this piece, but our sense of collectivism, our sense of interpersonal ways of being, we want to start off right away with a breakout group. And we have, Andy, how do we get the questions to them? Because we have them here if we want to put them in the chat, but
I'm happy to paste them in the chat, and then I can broadcast them again once everyone is in breakout rooms.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going
just to get us talking and connecting, since we're virtual.
Yeah, I think so. And so we're going to do about a 7-minute breakout group. And your groups will be about 4 or 5. And from my memory, I know that Andy's going to put it in the chat and broadcast it, but really we just, want to get people talking about what the concept of healing means. What does it mean to you? What has it meant to you?
Do you have any cultural, ancestral memories of healing in your family, or family stories that you've heard? So trying to connect and activate your ancestral memories that is in your DNA, for all peoples, right, from wherever they come from. So we're going to do that in the breakout room.
Okay. Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Well,
we missed you.
We missed you already. Yeah.
How did it go? What came up?
We just wanted to get you all started to think a little bit about the idea of healing and trying to remember family stories or family practices that sometimes we don't always get a chance to connect with. So before we move on, we do want to connect with a larger group. So we'd like to invite people to either share in the chat what, maybe something that came up in your group. Also, if 1 or 2 people just want to share out loud, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm seeing Cynthia that saying, sending her heart so much gratitude to her breakout group, the women, the mujeres in her group, and Alexa saying it was really beautiful and that they want to stay in touch. So I love that there was so many connecting things going on. Yes, Norma, adelante.
Go ahead.
Hola a todos. I'm Colombian born and live in Queens, New York. I moved here when I was a child. Couple of years after moving here, my mom and my sister and I had a car accident where she passed away. The person who caused it was my uncle, and I never saw that as anything towards him, just, a car accident. But he was reckless, and with all that, common thing that when I mentioned this is that if it's not mentioned, then you don't bring the actual cause, the reason or the person's responsibility to light. So it was my father's side of the family, his sibling, my grandmother's son. So it was never spoken about. But then that also brought that my mother was never spoken about for 20 years. It's as if lived, as if she was never real. So I, as an adult, reached out to my mother's side of the family, went back to Colombia. Her name was mentioned. They said I looked like her. All of it was amazing because she was real. And so, but it's so, when you don't speak of grief, you think you're the only one. And then when you don't speak within your culture, you think that you're just an odd person. Yet it's so common in our culture not to speak about who's responsible for the cause of pain or even just of the loss of death. So our group was amazing. They also spoke about, just just causes by other people, and I don't want to discuss details unless they want
right.
to. Just bringing to light the responsible person, and how they're protected versus the person who actually the victim.
Thank you so much, Norma. I think one of the things that I hear you saying is the importance of intentionality and the importance of naming events and experiences. And I think that is something that I think we all see as an important piece of healing.
And that speaks to the healing ways of honoring our palabra, honoring our word, having, again, our lived experiences valued, validated, and spoken. And especially in this country, so often our lived experiences are not validated, and we don't get to speak our heart. And so we have Siwa Latokan, which is a council of women. And when we speak, it can take all day, hours, because there's no time limit. And we so often don't get to center our voices that we just want to share our hearts so much. And I know this plática in particular is only an hour, but I invite you to, in whatever way after the plática, that you can validate your voices, uplift your voices, take back the narrative, right? Create our own narratives. And that is a very healing process in and of itself. Whether it's writing, whether you're talking with each other, whether you keep in contact with your breakout group or with each other here, or if you start a healing medicinal conversation with your family, like Norma was saying, that they got to speak about her mother and honor her life and that conexión, that connection between Norma and her mother, right? Noticing that she looked like her and all these different things. So in those connecting ways, that already in and of itself is the healing practice of our people, because we're a collectivistic people. We're not individualistic.
Correct.
And we live in an individualistic society, which is always, if you want to elaborate on that.
I think that's always, I think that leads to sometimes when we try to heal or when we're grieving, a lot of the mainstream ways are very individualistic, like very, how you heal and what you need to do. And of course, everything's a both and, right? I mean, we need both. But what happens, I think, with a lot of our people being collectivistic in an individualistic society is that we hear more the individualistic ways of healing and grieving, and that we don't sometimes know why we run up against walls with that. Like, it doesn't feel right, or it's not helping as much. And that's because our ways, a lot of the time, ways that we have continued to have in our families and ways that we've been disconnected from. So I think there's representation of all of that. Our ways are more collectivistic. They're more about that interpersonal way of healing. So we always need both. And the only thing is that a lot of the times the collectivistic way of healing and grieving isn't as acknowledged. And and then we feel like not right in the way we're grieving, or not right in the way we're healing. And I think that's something that we experience, and why it's important to reconnect. Like, no, it is right. It's just different. It's different. And when coming from a psychological, the fields that I'm in, a lot of the times when you have a way of healing and maybe you go to a therapist or mental health professional, those ways look great when the therapist is trained in an individualistic way of healing and the client's individualistic as well. It's like, yeah, you got to move forward. But then the disconnect comes when the healing from the client may be more a collectivistic healing. And so I think that's where some of that disconnect comes. But I want to go back to what Tlazoltiani was saying that we talk about often, which you've already said, but I'd like to emphasize, is that one of the things that we do is when we are reconnecting, not just to our contemporary Latinx, Latina cultures, which there's a lot of wisdom already that we don't talk about, but also when we're talking about our indigenous or ancestral connections that we all share. So many, I think all indigenous peoples know that one of the things you do is you connect to the very basic elements, right? You know, earth, wind, fire, water.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about wind. And I think that what we know is wind connects to our breath, right? But for us in the work we do, it also connects to our voice. So when we're saying something we need to say, or when we need to say something, that's when you're connecting to that sacred element of the wind. And I think that's important, I think, to note.
Oh, Mateo.
Mateo.
So let's pull up the slides. We'll do a little bit and then we'll come back and talk together.
Okay, let's see. Oh.
Okay, so we did the breakout. Here we go. So why is this topic important? You know, for 12 years, we talk about the 3 pillars of what we call brown wellness. Brown as a cultural people, not as a skin color. We're not talking about skin color. We're talking about brown wellness as a cultural peoples.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about the pillars of that wellness, which is identity, family, spirituality. We talk about healing family relationships, spirituality and mental health, the powers of stories to heal, storytelling as healing, psycho-spirituality to heal trauma. We talk about the rebozo, which I'm wearing as a cosmic tool of the mujeres and femmes. We talk about Chicanx affirmative therapy, on and on and on. Why do we do that? Why do we devote our lives to these things? Because we're sacred. We're creators. We're co-creators. We create with our creator hands, right? We create with our palabras, with our imaginations. We can create the kind of life we want to build, that healing 7 generations back, 7 generations forward. We create for our family members. We create art. We create so many beautiful things. And we do this because we're sacred. We're sacred. You don't hear that often, especially if you're come from a Latinx community or a BIPOC community. You hear all kinds of other dominant narratives that are very harmful. And it's important to remind ourselves that we are sacred.
I think that one of the things that we wanted to share, let's see where, I don't know what's next.
It's the map. Where is it?
Okay. Then, I think this is part of what we said in the description where we were going to talk about, like, maybe decolonizing, destigmatizing healing and health and mental health, is that, you know, when we think of ourselves as sacred, that's a reconnection to our connection to everything that is. As you said, we're going to talk more about
everything that is. We're related to everything that is. And that means if we think in that way, what a different worldview our ancestors come with, and our ancestral wisdoms, because that means that the plants are our sisters, our brothers, our siblings. That means that the trees are our grandmothers and our grandfathers. That means that the water is the blood of our Madre Tierra, that's her blood. And that means that the earth is our mother. So are we going to come, you know, dominate our mother? No. If we're in relationship and know that we're related to the cosmos, to the Nana Metzli, which is the moon, Tata Tonatiuh, which is the sun, Koyoshauki, another energy of the moon and the stars, on and on and on and on and on, then we are in harmony with all that is. What a powerful, sacred worldview that our ancestors left for us, right? And what a beautiful way to be in the world, different from the way that we have been taught. That's a healing way in and of itself.
And I can see we have. And so we just wanted to provide a very brief context about this reconnection and knowing that we come and we're all at different places in how we know some of our own healing ways and connections to our own healing, based on our family, based on our history, based on our positionality in the world, all these, but all those different factors. But I thought it was important, and we wanted to show that when we think about reconnecting, let's remember that the peoples of what is called the Americas come from two of the mother civilizations in the world, right? And so what we now call North America, we have the Anahuac civilization, which is in and around Mesoamerica.
Mm-hmm.
And then in what is now called South America, near Peru,
Tamantinsuyu.
yeah, the Tamantinsuyu.
Right.
And
so these are the 6 mother civilizations: Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, China, Anahuac, which is our peoples, Latinx people, and Tamantinsuyu. I struggle with that one, which is around more where the Incan peoples are, which is the continent of South America. So thinking of it this way, our peoples, Latinx peoples, have a long history with this mother civilization that has the most sacred sites built out of all the mother civilizations. You would think it would be Egypt, right? But no, it's actually Anahuac. It's actually our ancestors. And think about that long history of healing that comes with that. Those 10,000 years plus of healing ways. The Toltec people lived for 1,000 years in splendor and had all these systems for well-being, and those have been passed down to you, right? For us to use, to share, to honor, to respect, right? So so we wanted to just kind of give you this view of who the Anahuac people are, our ancestors.
And so one of the things you can read this and we can check. I mean, we can also kind of review it as well. But when Tlazoltiani was talking a little while ago about how we heal and how we're well, one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is that concept of brown wellness, which we'll talk more about. And it comes from the idea that La cultura cura, which is there are many ways in which our people know wellness. But a lot of the times we've been shamed. A lot of the times the current medical or health system don't recognize the wellness that we have. And we have internalized that narrative. As Tlazoltiani was saying, we need to take back that narrative. We've internalized. Part of our healing is to recognize that we've internalized a lot of narratives about the way in which our culture is, it has a lot of deficits, right? And all cultures learn both healthy and unhealthy ways to cope. All cultures learn adaptive and maladaptive ways to cope. The difference is that in this country in particular, when we look at the maybe not so healthy ways that our culture has adapted, it's blamed on the culture specifically, right?
It becomes a cultural deficit.
And that doesn't happen with a larger society, right? It's just, oh, those are just bad ways. Those, you have to unlearn those ways. So part of our healing is to recognize that we can call out, healthy and unhealthy ways, but let's not internalize the narrative that it's specific to our culture, right?
So how would you elaborate that in terms of like saying our people eat unhealthy?
That our people
eat unhealthy. They're unhealthy.
Well, I think again, one of the things that we see a lot for our people is, in general, we tended in this country to have a history of having access to foods that are not healthy, that are cheap, right? Cheap to buy, cheap to feed a family. Because historically we have not had access to healthy food. So it's not our culture that's unhealthy. It's like, our people, they like to eat all these bad things, and we need to, and then we try to learn and do better, and we try to maybe show our families ways to do better. But what we can come at is we can come at our families and our community with a little judgment, like, wow, why are they like that? We need to change our ways. Well, it really wasn't, those were not our ways. Those were ways that the only options that were presented. And you know what our people do? Like so many peoples, they adapt and they make that food the best tasting they can, and they make it the best that they can do for their family. And then it does become something that's handed down. But unhealthy ways are not part of our cultural legacy. We do not have an unhealthy culture.
So it isn't because of the culture, it's just a response to the violences of not having access to food, to money, to education, to good jobs,
correct,
to clean water, to all the housing. Yeah. Like that. Okay. So do you want to go on to the next slide? Or I think we should come off a little bit and then talk about identity.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And let's see. Stop sharing your next slide.
Stop sharing. Okay. I want to see everybody's faces.
Yeah.
There you are.
And I know that you're juggling a lot, Andy, but are there any comments on the chat that you could just briefly look at that maybe we should respond to at the moment? Anything that we can do while we begin talking about it?
A lot of brilliant, reflections.
Great.
And I'm also happy to share out some of this too in the follow-up email as well.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate that so much.
Does anybody have anything that's resonated with them? Anything they want to
Yes.
say? Any questions? Oh, Mateo, adelante.
Thank you, maestro and maestra. I have struggled with how to identify with our culture. My particular family lineage is with a lot of trauma, and I think for a lot of times I'm in my 5th decade now. I think for a lot of my time getting to maturity, I couldn't distinguish between what was our culture, what was, for lack of a better word, the dysfunction and the trauma that my family was experiencing and trying to cope with. And I struggled to see the good ways that we had, even in the midst of all that. And I recently lost my grandmother in February. She was my longest lived elder. I lost both my parents young. And part of my healing right now is recognizing her amazing strength and all the things that she did in her life that reflect the strength that we could carry through the difficult time for many generations. So it's part of my healing to understand that my grandma represented so much of what was good, and I need to wipe away and let go of the messaging that said, oh, she was just this little lady who worked at the post office and she wasn't very ambitious and she sometimes couldn't feed her kids, like that was all the circumstances she was dealt. That is not who she was.
Right.
Mateo. Thank you, Alexis, for sharing your palabra, for speaking your heart into the circle. Thank you for sharing your tears, those healing waters that are within our body. Thank you for that powerful vulnerability, because that's what vulnerability is. It's power. So we're grateful for you, and people are sending on the chat lots of love, lots of healing. Blessings to your abuelita. She's made her journey. And fuerza for your family. First of all, before anything else, fuerza, love, strength, right? And you have gained that new beautiful ancestor, Mateo. That's something we always hear about.
Yes.
Yeah, this comes up all the time about not knowing how to feel about our culture, how to connect to it, because there's been so much trauma, so much pain. That comes up every single time we have a plática.
All the time. Yeah. I think one of the things that we try to remind ourselves of is some general points, and hopefully they connect in some ways. And one is always looking at the intention behind some of the behaviors. Because a lot of the times, and it's always both and, because just recognizing intention doesn't necessarily mean, not just for you, Alexis, but a lot of different examples I'll use, doesn't absolve maybe someone from the responsibility of continuing to maybe act in a
Right.
toxic way, perhaps, or we still have to take that responsibility. So it's not about saying, oh, let's forget that, but it is important to look at what is the intention behind that? What was the attempt of what someone was trying to do and learn? And a lot of the times that leads to this idea of familismo, and that how sometimes our familismo can be very oppressive, and we keep secrets, and we, we have a lot of maybe unhealthy ways of dealing with stress and things that come up in the family. One of the things that we say is, well, the value of that collectivistic familismo is not necessarily the problem. The problem is the ways in which that was interpreted and the ways in which people behaved that can be negative. And then we have people saying, I just don't want to be connected to my culture that way, I'm proud of who I am, but I don't do the whole familismo thing. And then what we invite people to consider is the beautiful parts of familismo and interdependence don't have to look the ways in which some people have experienced it in maybe negative or unhealthy ways. You can still even if you haven't experienced it, you can kind of reconnect to that sense of familismo, sometimes not with your own family, because sometimes doing that with your own family it's entrenched and you're just going to get harmed.
Right.
So it's like, let's pause and not say like it's all bad, familismo is bad and our culture is bad. Let's say the way my family did a lot of things that they considered familismo was unhealthy, but the idea of interdependence can be beautiful. Let's remember that we do talk about both and
that's very important, both and.
2/3 of the world are collectivistic. 2/3 of the world are collectivistic. If that was an unhealthy way of being, collectivism would be gone, right? We would have evolved out of it. But we have it because there's a lot of value in that. And so we learn patterns that we pass down that we don't even realize. I'll give like a couple of examples. I don't know how many people had parents where they would yell at you if you went outside barefoot or you went outside with your hair wet. I mean, you could get spanked even. You just know it's immediate anger from 0 to 60. Where does that come from? It's like, oh, that's bad parenting, which might not be the best parenting. Like you're yelling at your kids, but that's all the things that we hear. Well, the reasoning for those behaviors don't get passed down because 3-4 generations below, at least in this country, and a lot of people, you didn't have immediate access to doctors or healthcare. You didn't have immediate, and if you had big families and some kid did perhaps go out barefoot or hair wet, and perhaps they did get sick, it could be deathly sick. It could be huge. And so what you learn is, hey, get in here right now because you could be sick. Well, no one explains to the kids that's why you get so mad. It's just that behavior that gets passed down. So we have to look back and like, why are we so reactive to some of the things? Where did that come from? Not just that we need to change it, because if that's the message we get, then we internalize our culture must be wrong. No, maybe there's things we need to change, but where did it come from? Why was it there?
So there's the intergenerational trauma, but we also have intergenerational wisdoms, right? Multi-generational wisdoms to meet that trauma. And what we like to do with the Institute of Chicanx Psychology is separate what needs to be healed with what needs to be grown and elevated. So it isn't the cultural values of familismo, of all these different cultural values that are unwell. We can keep the value, but we can also recognize the harmful behavior, right? For example, we're very collectivistic in our family. We're very, familistic. We honor all our cultural values, but not with my family. My own mother, for example, is very harmful. And now she's 84 years old, but has caused harm, our whole life. And so I have to heal that mother wound, but I still created that with my own children and with my community. So we can still honor our cultural values and not have a deficit view of our culture. It isn't our culture that's messed up. It is the traumas, intergenerational traumas, the coloniality, the contemporary coloniality, the invasion. We're twice colonized. No, we're not colonized. twice invaded people, one from Spain in the 1500s, and then one with settler colonialism later on in this part of the continent, here on Turtle Island. So, so we have to remember, you know, ancestral trauma, historical trauma, complex trauma, secondary trauma, intergenerational trauma, all these things. But that's why we're talking today about healing, because we also have multi-generational healing, right? Oh, Mateo, I feel that energy and that medicine within all of you. I can see it. We're going to go back to the slides because I know our time is short. Oh my God, we're almost out of time. Wait, let's talk more. We'll stay on for a couple hours after. No, I'm just kidding. Hold on, let's just quickly go through some slides. Andy, you're gonna have to tell us when we have to. We'll just go real fast. So this is what we talked about, brown wellness as a brown cultural wellness, not the color. So identity, family, community, spirituality. These are some pillars.
Right.
And we wanted to talk more about labels. Like, honestly, we don't use the term Latinx or Latina. We don't identify as Latin. And in fact, some people from Italy were saying, why do y'all keep calling yourself Latinos, Latina? We're the real Latin peoples over here, you know? And it's true, terms have been put on us, right? To identify who we are. And we're definitely not a monolith. So, you know, a lot of people just don't choose different terms, don't like different ways, identify in different ways. Honestly, that is an 8-hour conversation. And we have had 3-hour conversations just on the words we choose alone. But we do use the term Latina, Latinx, because we meet people where we are. And this is a term that people can often recognize and that they are used to for now. Right. So we're not going to isolate people, and, you know, because we don't want to use the term that is commonly being used. So
we understand, again, the intention and sometimes the pride people feel because they connect the pride of who they are to a certain term sometimes.
For sure.
And so we recognize that, we understand that, and it's about respecting where people are, where they're from, and also having our own perspective of why certain labels and identities maybe connect or don't connect. Mm-hmm. So for us, I know sometimes there's a question of, you know, Latinx, like that's the X is, you know, not grammatically correct. Some people are using Latina. And for us, it could go Latina, Latino, Latina. All the Latino things really don't connect to who we are,
right,
in a lot of ways. But we understand why they're there. We understand
Hispanic,
why we continue to use them. And we just want to respect the feelings and the affiliation people have for certain ways that they have identified. We don't want to take away that sense of pride people feel.
And it's a much larger conversation. So if anybody wants to, you know, contact us at another time, we're already a community, we're already family. If you want to contact us, we can have a larger conversation about this, but we are very short time here, so we have to just kind of hurry. We're gonna talk about curanderismo, and santeria, etc. Okay, the T didn't make it into the etc. But so this is a set of folk, it says medical beliefs, rituals, practices that address the psychological, social, and spiritual needs of Latinx populations through a system of medicine with its own theoretical, diagnostic, and therapeutic roots. So this isn't just a little subset of healing. This is healing. Mm-hmm. It is not lesser than Western healing. It can be alongside, right? It's its own thing. And people say, oh, brother, everybody says their abuela, their abuelo, their tia was a curandera. Yes, that's right. That is true, because that is how we had our health care. That's how we had our healing. That is correct. We had to take care of ourselves, and we have this long, thousands of years wisdoms about how to do that. So that is correct. Again, a larger conversation. We could go on and on about the different healing ways, but here's a few things that we do to heal different things, like susto pasado, different things that happen. You can do limpias, which is energetic and spiritual cleansings that can affect, if somebody is sick, sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's all of them, right? So you can do the limpia with the egg being a large cell, right? So it can take that energy, what's happening, and it can absorb it for you, and it can show what might have happened when you crack it open, right? You can do it with a lemon, you can do it with flowers, you can do it with ramas, like herbs, the sweeping. Right now is the time for ancestral sweeping. That's another large conversation. But sweeping out things that don't serve you, things that you don't need to create room for healing. You can do a limpia with copal, which is a sap from a tree in Mexico, with water, with tobacco. And then there are those psychoactive herbs and plants that you can do in ceremony with elders. So you don't want to take out the spirit from the plant. You want to honor the spirit of the plant that you're working with. Okay. So people are using psilocybin. Well, Maria Sabina dedicated her entire life to working with mushroom medicine. And a long story, but she really sacrificed a lot to give this medicine to the people all the time. So again, you want to use these medicines with elders and in ceremony. There's healing you can do with mud, with infusing herbs into the mud, with religious objects, animal parts, with salt, with the black powder that's explosive. What is that called? You can use it in fireworks, like gunpowder. There's even healings like that. You can use chilas with your fire. There's all kinds of healings. We just wanted to give you a quick overview. I think we're almost out of time, right, Andy?
Yes, well, we're supposed to wrap up at 2:15 Eastern time, I believe.
Okay.
So if it's up to you two, if you feel like we have time for more breakouts, and it's up to you two if you have time to extend a bit, and if people have to leave, they have to leave. But
right.
I do this to the two of you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just move through these things quickly, and then we want to leave time for questions and for discussion and for what's coming up, right?
Maybe we do questions instead of a breakout group. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We might do a whole group of questions or conversation instead of a breakout group. So, now what you're looking at is two completely different medicine wheels. And medicine wheels will be different according to the cosmovision of where you are. So the cosmovision that we use, the Anahuac cosmovision, opens the direction of the east, which is fire. See the yellow? I showed you different ones because depending on what peoples you're talking to, you're going to get different answers, and it's so that you don't say, oh no, you're wrong, the West isn't that. For us, the West is the direction of women, the direction of the earth. And then the North is the direction that our ancestors go when they pass. It's the direction of our ancestors, the direction of wind. And the South is blue typically for us. And it's the direction of water, direction of children, the direction children go when they pass. The direction of the hummingbird, which has a very strong will with its little body that fulfills its divine purpose to pollinate. It goes all the way across the land, far, far, far with that little body. And that's the will that we want to honor and ask for sometimes, right? That's the direction of the South. Then there's the direction of the cosmos where we get guidance, and the direction of the earth. And then the seventh direction is all of our hearts. It's us. So I'm not going to talk very long about these medicine wheels, but the reason we have it here is to remind us that we, again, are related to everything that is. We are cyclical beings. We honor the cycle of our breath, how many times a day, where we breathe that wind in and out. how many times a day do we honor that cycle? We honor the seasons. And when it's winter, it's time to go inward into our cave. It's time to eat that chocolate. It's time to be reflective. It's time to spend time with our ancestors. And in the fall, what do the leaves do? They shed. And one of the energies of the east, Xipetotec, sheds their skin, just the way the corn sheds the husk and the snake sheds their skin as well, right? So it reminds us in autumn that it's time to shed. And then we honor decay in the north in the winter. We honor that decay where everything gets to die, so that in the spring, the soil is fertile so that we can plant whatever seeds that we want to plant in our lives, what we want to grow, right? And enjoy in that summertime. So if you'll notice, the wheel is following these cycles, and our bodies, ourselves, our stages in life are following the cycles because we're cyclical beings. That's why we can look at the cosmos and it gives us information about what we need to do. There's an eclipse coming up. There's a lot going on in the skies lately, and it's information. That's a whole nother conversation. But just so that you can get a sense of how many healing ways there are in our ancestral ways. So, there's certain flavors for certain times where we eat bitter things, a time when we eat sweet things. So just understanding more and more that we're cyclical beings, that will really help you, is a very healing thing. We have the daytime, but at night, so much healing happens. Our body, our brain, so many systems while we sleep.
I think when we talk about self-care, right, different ways of self-care, it's important to distinguish between de-stressing activities and self-care, right? Sometimes when we have a bad day, we're stressed, things are happening. We're like, people, I think, inadvertently sometimes say, oh, I need some self-care. I need to do this one thing that day that's going to help ground me again. Usually those are more accurately de-stressing activities, which are fine, like we de-stress. But self-care is long-term, right? Self-care are things that, as we know, that we do pretty regularly, whether we're feeling stressed or not, to build in how we want to approach our life. Well, this is very similar to following the sacred ways of the season, right? If we build our self-care around winter, means we don't do a lot of output. Winter means we reflect. Winter means we plan for the springtime. I know that we can't always do that in our work days, but in general, like if we want to try to generally connect, that's that long-term self-care.
So, winter, it's about time for you to shut down. Don't work a lot, don't do anything in the winter time. And then you can plant the seeds in the spring and be full going in the summer. But, definitely follow those seasons as part of that self-care. Another concept, and I hate to say concept because these are living energies. Just like the directions have living energies, guardians. The nighttime has several guardians. The daytime has guardians. Everything has energies. They weren't gods. People say Aztec gods. They're not gods. They're energies. It's just that the invaders interpreted them from their view as gods, right? But no, they're energies. This energy, Ome Teot. Ome means two in Nahuatl. Teot means like a creating energy. It could be a divine creating energy. So it's that duality and that creating two forces coming together to create something. So we're creating an Ome Teot with each of you. In your breakout rooms, you were creating an Ome Teot with each other. Me and my dualidad are creating an Ome Teot with each other, right? So it also recognizes divinity in each other. Like we said earlier, you are sacred. So that means when I say Ome Teot, I'm recognizing the divinity in you, right? Day, night, masculine, feminine energies in whatever body that is, right? On and on and on is creating energy, that Ome Teot. So this alone is a very powerful worldview, right? In Lakesh, this is Mayan. You are my other me. So tú eres mi otro yo, you are my other me. Si te hago daño a ti, me hago daño a mí mismo. If I harm you, I harm myself. Si te amo y respeto, me amo y respeto yo. If I love and respect you, I love and respect myself. And this is, again, another conversation because this is a larger whole Mayan philosophy, a way of living, but it's recognizing ourselves in each other. Imagine how healing that would be if we treated each other that way, right? Okay, this is one of the energies we talked about. We said there's energies in everything. Well, this is Tezcatlipoca. This is an energy of the north. Espejo humeante, that means that mirror in which we try and look at ourselves, the obsidian mirror. It's a smoky obsidian mirror is what that means. Tezcatlipoca in Nahuatl. And that obsidian mirror, it's smoky because we can't always see through all of our, experiences, can't always truly see ourselves. But this is an energy of self-reflection. And you could think of this energy as human consciousness, as our human consciousness. Again, this is a whole conversation. And this is only one energy, which means many things. Imagine if you went through an entire codice with all of these glyphs, right? So just again, to give you a quick little view into just a tip of what there is out there in terms of our Latinx wellness.
It also talks about the importance of introspection.
Yeah.
The importance of understanding that we're always on a journey to self-discovery. We're never at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear that a lot these days in a lot of different, advice and guidance. One of the things we wanted to say is that, again, as our community and our peoples in different communities from our cultures, we had some of this wisdom, and we're inviting you to reconnect so that it's not always about us, quote unquote, learning from the more typical Western way of healing. Like, we understood the importance of introspection. We understood the importance of that journey to self-discovery. So sometimes part of our own healing is just knowing that it's part of our own reconnection to our own lineage within who we are already.
Yeah.
Okay.
And very basic level, we say, do we have the right to reconnect? Yes, we do. It's just an internalized oppression that has separated us from our cultural strengths and our cultural ways that makes us think that we don't have the right to reconnect. Of course we do. We connect very easily with, Eastern healing, right? Yoga, all of those things. And those are considered valued now, right? But for some reason, we don't feel like we have the right to reconnect with our own ways, or like it's incorrect, right? Here's another one, and real quickly, Olin, Nawi Olin. You see the 4 points in that fifth space in the middle. That fifth space is you. It's your heart. It's the movement that needs to happen. It's, it can be an eye for viewing. And the 4 points in the end, each tip makes a strong base, the 4 directions. But that 5th point is that sacred movement where transformation can happen. Now think about this again, sacred living, I don't want to say concept, but to where if we understand the movement that needs to shift and change in our lives, right? Something that needs to shift, and we can call on this energy of the Nawi Olin, right? Nawi means 4, Olin means movement. Okay, so this was going to be the breakout. How do these Anawaka concepts fit in your current idea of spirituality? Do you see them expanding your practices and your beliefs? Do they conflict with some of your current beliefs? If so, what are some possible ways to resolve these conflicts? So we can either think about this later. You can take a picture of it, have a family discussion.
You can put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat. But we're going to come back. We're going to stop sharing. And we're going to see again your Ishli, your Litsi, your faces and your hearts.
I know it's hard in the last 4 minutes that we have or so to summarize, but we always want to do the best that we can to connect. So we invite people to share in the chat, or if you'd like to share out loud, please do so. You want to unmute or raise your hand. We're happy to have as best a conversation as we can in the last few minutes we have together. Yes.
Mateo.
Rosa.
Rosella? Rosella?
Rosella.
My name is Rosella.
Rosella.
Thank you all. I really appreciate being here. I'm used to being the token brown person and in my communities, and been really disconnected from my culture and my ancestry for a long time. And I've had a lot of shame around not being able to have the resources to go visit my ancestry in Mexico, from Tequila, Jalisco, where my family's from. And the resistance I have with the trauma that you all have explained of the intergenerational trauma, and then accessing that intergenerational wisdom was really beautiful. So I appreciate that. And also to the way that you all mix in the indigenous languages to represent different things like our faces or the medicine is really beautiful. And I feel like when I hear that, it's so natural to me, and it feels like I'm with my ancestors right now. So thank you all. I appreciate your energy.
Oh, Mateo. And our ancestors are always here. We can call them up like that. We live our lives with them. Let's remember to put out a spirit plate for them and some water on the altar so that they can have somewhere to go, right? Thank you for that. Yes, it's in your DNA. It's in your ancestral memory is activated, right? Elizabeth?
Hello, very happy to be here. I have seen now, I'm close to my 60th birthday, and I can see my journey and going back to my roots. I was in the conversation that we have in the group, I remember my maternal grandmother cleaning us with eggs and with herbs and other kind of things. And both my paternal family very separated from that, very Americanized. So I became myself a psychotherapist, but then I went into shamanic healing, becoming a shamanic practitioner, and then learning the wisdom of the medicine wheels. And I bring now everything together with my clients because I see the value of each one of the practices. So I even created a methodology of treatment that I am now teaching, but it's beautiful to see that. And I see that there is now a lot of respect and value in our tradition, in our ways. So yes. I'm very happy to be here and to hear from you and from all this community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So glad you're doing that work. Yes.
Beautiful. And see, just naturally as a people, we share gratitude. We have an energy exchange, right? We're exchanging energy, not just a taking, it's a giving as well, right? Which is so very powerful. The concept of giving, a whole nother conversation.
I think the whole idea of that, which you mentioned, Elizabeth, is what Tlazoltiani talks a lot about, that there is in some ways this gran despierta.
Right.
There's this
we're all waking up right now
to this reconnection.
Normally it happens in certain ceremonies at the age of 13. We group our years in 13 year bundles. So there's ceremonies where despertar del niño, where they wake up at the age of 13, right? However, we're all waking up right now and understanding that reconnecting to these healing ways is very crucial and important for the times that we're living in, since there's so much fracturing that's been happening within the peoples, within our Madrecita Tierra, Tonantzin Tlalicuatlicue, within her blood, right? So we need all of us and all these healing ways. Did anybody else want to share their palabra? I know it's time to go, so if anybody needs to get off, we understand. Maria, adelante.
Hello, everyone. Just wanted to say the space is beautiful. I was adopted and I'm displaced. I'm a transracial adoptee, so I'm of Afro-Indigenous descent, and I was raised in a white American home here in America. I'm from Ecuador. And I am a leader in the adoptee community, and I run a group. And I honestly thought that was like the only space that I could feel kind of connection, like collectiveness, because we understood each other on the displaced loss and ambiguous grief. But being in the space here and then just sharing a little bit in the smaller group, it was really neat to see that our people, whether you're displaced in that way through adoption or, you know, other colonial ways, that that we are trying to collectively, like we are like waking up and we are trying to reclaim. And so I just want to tell everybody that I'm really proud of everybody for showing up today. And I was a little nervous to be in this space because I was used to the other one, but I just appreciate being here and for the work and time and details that were shared with the facilitators.
Thank you so much for sharing your palabra. It's very important,
so much,
right? That we can be in safe spaces where we can put down our armor and not have to protect ourselves and explain our lived experiences. So thank you so much for sharing your palabra. So I think it's time to close. Andy, I don't know if you wanted to say anything because I was going to close with a canto.
I'd rather have you close with that, and I'll say a few words, and then I'll pass it to you, okay?
Okay, so close with canto. Okay. So hopefully we've come. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I just want to do my boring kind of housekeeping, and then I'll pass it to you.
Oh, okay. Yes.
First, wow, that was such a moving experience to witness and to be a part of. So thank you, Tlazoltiani and Manuel, for leading us, for teaching us. Tlazolkumati, gracias. I want to share a bit about some upcoming events of note. I'm just going to put that in the chat here. We have an event on cultural bereavement, which I think would be a lot of interest to a lot of folks who come from immigrant backgrounds. So I hope you'll register for that. That's by one of our Reimagine collaborators. We have this event that I helped organize, but the majority of what you see on Reimagine's platform is generated by leaders like yourselves. And we welcome you. Check out the link here to host your own events on our platform. We want to see more of this here. So please consider that. If you've already made a small donation to Reimagine as part of this, thank you. If you haven't, I've put a link in the chat. Support the Institute for Chicanx Psychology as well. I think that's all I need to say. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Tlazoltiani and Manuel.
Oh, Mateo. So we open in a good way and we close in a good way, everything that we do. So I'm going to close sharing a cantito. We harmonized our hearts. Here with this drum beat, we're harmonizing our hearts with each other, with our Madrecita Tierra, with her heart. You can feel that. And I'm going to sing a song that connects us to the 4 elements. Tierra es mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, viento mi aliento y fuego mi espíritu. Tlalino nagayon adul no etso, hekat no iheyo, iwantlet no tona. Earth is my body, water my blood, wind is my breath, and fire is my spirit. Hey, hey, yana, hey, hey, ya, hey, yana, hey, hey, ya, hey, yana, hey, yana, hey. Hey, hey, yana, hey, hey, ya, hey, yana, hey. Hey ya, hey, yana, hey, yana, hey. Oh, Mateo.
Also, Kamati, thank you, everybody. It's great spending time with you in this space. please reach out if you have anything you want to ask at any point. We would love to continue the conversation. Have a great day, a great rest of your week.